Chloe Swannell is from the central west of New South Wales, and she has released the singles Strange Love in 2023 and last year Unchained and Living in the Country. Her new single is Love's a Little Bit, and it's moving her sound even further along from the beginning. So I'm interested to talk about that. Hello, Chloe.
Hello, Sophie. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. You, however, have not been so well because I saw on your social media something you put up a post saying back playing guitar after 8 weeks off because you got kicked by a horse. So, how are you? Number one. Number two, what happened?
I'm really well now. I was having a bit of a conversation with a horse who wasn't my horse or anything. It was a friend's horse, and wanted to be a little bit naughty, and she ended up teaching me a lesson, which was get a longer lunge rein before you start having these conversations with horses.
Okay. So, were you actually kicked, or was it something else?
Yeah, so I was both back legs come straight into, she was coming for my face and I went like that. And yeah, she kicked my left hand. So I've got a bit of a bent finger. It's a little bit interesting. Oh, it has just started pummeling rain.
Okay.
I hope you can still hear me.
I can, yeah. Yeah.
But yes, so I've had surgery on my left ring finger. I broke my middle finger and my pinky finger, and I'm 12 weeks per recovery now, and back playing, and yeah, doing well. It's still very, very sore, but I can play guitar, so that's all that matters.
That must be a musician's nightmare, though.
Yeah, I was terrified. I was honestly terrified. I was laying in hospital. And I live in such a small town. I went to Bathurst Hospital, and they said, we're going to send you to Orange. And I went, oh, okay, this is not good. And then Orange Hospital actually rang me and said, yeah, no, you're going straight to Sydney. I was like, oh no. So when I got to Sydney and they said that, amputation was a possibility, I was terrified, absolutely terrified. But I came through it. I had a brilliant team of surgeons and doctors, and yeah, hopefully you won't know anything's even happened after a few years. Hopefully my scar will go away, and yeah.
Oh, Chloe, that's an awful experience because it's the shock of all of that as well, being moved from hospital to hospital. Those who may wonder why you were moved from Bathurst to Orange, it's because Orange has a base hospital, and then to move to Sydney is because Sydney has large teaching hospitals and a lot of specialists are here. I'm in Sydney, and I know someone who had to go to a hand specialist for not from a horse, but similar reasons where the hand was not in a good state. But to be told that you might have your fingers amputated, I don't.
Yes.
That's. How did you manage all of that? Because it was just all happening so quickly that you thought, okay, I'm just gonna go with it.
Well, I initially just went, you know what? There are plenty of people who have accidents and they find a way to make it work. And I instantly started Googling how I could get my right-handed guitars, turned into left-handed ones, and how I could retrain myself to play left-handed instead of right-handed. And I thought, you know what? I'll beat this. It doesn't matter. It's an injury. I've had lots of injury. I think this was broken bone 15 or 16. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to smash my physio and we'll see what happens. And currently there's one chord I can't play yet, but I'm going to get it back. I'm going to get it back. I'm on my way.
Which chord is it?
I can't play any of the bar chords along the second string at the moment.
Right. So for any musician, any guitarist listening, you will know about bar chords and you'll know what that means. So you mentioned some other broken bones. Any of the others caused by animals?
There's only one break I think that I've ever had that wasn't caused by an animal. And I fell in a hole on holidays and broke my foot. But I'd already broken that foot before because I got trampled by a horse. So I don't know if that really counts.
Look, true, but I think why not add it to the tally? But yeah, horses. It's a reminder that actually, yes, horses are dangerous, and I know in my family history there were two different. My grandmother had two different uncles who died from stepping up onto a carriage and the horse taking off, and they fell back and whacked their heads and died. So horse related accidents, yes, they're still with us, obviously.
Absolutely. I mean, I count myself very lucky that she didn't get me in the head that day. So could have been a very different sort of rehabilitation if she'd have gotten me in the head, but she got my hand. So I don't know how I only came off with three broken fingers from a double barrel kick off a 500-kilo horse. I'm not sure how that happened, but hey, I'll take it. It's a win.
Yes, and look, if you're still talking to your friend, that's also a win.
Yes, yes, we're still speaking. It wasn't her fault.
So are you in pain now?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I'm in pain a fair bit of the time. When I play, I just play through it. But yes, the swelling's still quite intense on my these two fingers here. And I just have to manage it. They said that it could take up to 12 months for that to go away. So we're at 3 months. We've only got 9 to go.
Okay. Look, I'm getting the distinct feeling that the positive attitude has had a lot to do with the fact that you still have those fingers and they're still workable, actually. The mere fact you actually thought, I'm just going to start looking into how I can play guitar the other way around rather than going into a deep dark pit of despair. And there may have been a deep dark pit of despair at some point, but there's a certain pragmatism about your approach that has no doubt been helpful.
I think my mum has a lot to do with that deep dark pit. She just goes, not going anywhere near that. Come on, kiddo. You're gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. You've been here before. You've had plenty of accidents before. This is just another accident. And it was purely that. It was just a freak accident. I've been riding horses since I was 4 years old. I've never ever copped a kick like that. And it was doing something with an exercise I'd done a million times with heaps of different horses. So it was exactly that, just a freak accident. But my mum was really good at going, it's okay. You know, you've been through 2 knee reconstructions, a broken back, a broken face. You got this. It's fine. It's just a finger.
Chloe, there were stories there as well, a broken back.
Yeah, I came off a horse.
How old were you?
14.
Oh, that is not a great age to be in traction or anything else to do with a broken back.
I
Because
was super
life,
lucky.
you're a teenager. You want to be out and doing different things. I mean, we want to do
Yeah.
that at any age. But how long did that recovery take?
About 8 weeks. It was a super really silly thing. I just fell off. It was hilarious. We all thought it was funny, and then I got back up, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I've hurt a bit, but I'm okay." Got back on the horse. We kept riding a bit further, and then me and my friend both fell off, and then my legs went a bit numb, and I went, "Oh, that's not great." And I was like, I think I've hurt myself." And she's like, "I'll go get mum." So she rode back and got her mom, and they came back and grabbed me, and I was just sitting there chilling with my horse, and yeah, it was fine. I just ended up having like a slight fracture, and for somehow I'd pinched my sciatic nerve, but it didn't
Right.
cause pain, it caused numbness, which was really lucky. So yeah, but I think that one was a scary one, and then my broken eye socket, that was scary. I was knocked out for quite a while with that one. That was not fun. Don't recommend. Don't break your eye socket.
Look, great tip.
Yes.
But again, look, also because you have obviously literally gotten back on the horse.
Yeah.
These things, yeah.
Yeah. I was riding on Thursday.
Right. I think it's again the pragmatism. Um, 'Cause you said your mum's had a lot to do with it, but and obviously you've been trained a bit to think that way, but you still have to be able to apply it and keep applying it. So kudos to you
Thank you.
for being so extraordinary to get through that. Because yeah, for a lot of musicians that would feel like a career-ending injury, even at the stage you're at now. And I am
Yes.
curious because I saw there was another video not long before the one with you playing guitar after a break where you were playing bass. And I was wondering whether actually you were playing bass because it was a little bit easier for your fingers than guitar at that stage.
Yes, I was really lucky. I had about 40 shows booked in the time that the doctors said I'd be unable to play. And so I rang a friend of mine. I knew very luckily that the band he plays in, their lead singer had just actually had a baby. So I knew that they were having some time off. So I rang him, and he very graciously said, "Send me your dates, Chloe. I'll come and play for you." And he jumped on stage. We hadn't had a single time to rehearse, I think because we'd we'd done. I was been to hospital, and then it was Tamworth, and then it was like bang back into reality. And we played our first show, and I went, you know what? I reckon I can play bass with 2 fingers. And he went, but you've got 3 broken fingers. I said, oh, this one doesn't really count. It's only a little fracture. And he's like, Chloe, all right. I said, it's mainly like right hand work. I said, it'll be fine. I'll have a muck around at home. So I taught myself to play bass in an afternoon, and then, yeah, jumped on bass, and I played bass for 8 weeks and sang. And that is a lot harder than it looks. Kudos to any of those bass singers, because you guys, you rock it. You make it look very easy.
I think it's why there aren't a lot of lead singers who do play bass. Okay, let's just backtrack though. You taught yourself to play bass in an afternoon. I used to play bass. I was looking at you in that video playing bass, and I was thinking, I didn't realize that she also played bass all this time, was what I thought, because you looked like you'd been doing it for years.
Uh no. I had taught myself in an afternoon, and sat down, and just, my bassist in my band, I rang her and said, any hot tips? And she said, yep, just if you're not sure, play fifths. I was like, okay. So yeah, she gave me the rundown, and I have a very strong piano background, so I guess my musical theory knowledge is quite strong, and I was able to apply that to the fretboard quite easily. And I think I'm very lucky that I do have that background, that I can apply all of that knowledge. I can read bass clef and all those things, so it wasn't super foreign to me to be reading bass clef, which was really lucky. So yeah, thank goodness my mum forced me to learn the piano.
Well, if you want to go further, when I was taking lessons in bass, the teacher gave me Bach's cello studies to learn from, because she's like, oh, you can read music. All right, here's how you're going to learn bass. So,
Amazing. That's brilliant. I remember accompanying a girl who was doing her cello exams, and I had to play a Bach piece for her one of her diploma pieces, I think. So she was an incredible cellist.
well, I was not an incredible bass player, but that's how that goes.
Oh, I'm sure you were. I hope you still play.
I don't actually gave it up, but switched to guitar. So all's well that ends well. On that video of you playing bass, though, I did notice someone had left a comment saying, where are Tarquin and Izzy? Now, Tarquin is your producer,
Yes.
Tarquin Halls-Corbett. I did love that there was an audience member who obviously had seen you regularly enough and was so invested that they were quite upset that you did not have your regular band members there.
They were upset. They unfortunately, logistics with trying to get a whole band down from Newcastle to come and play shows in the Central West, it wasn't going to happen this time round. And the band were, really sad that they couldn't come down. I mean, poor Izzy, she's in uni, she's actually in medical school, and Tarquin's a full-time teacher. So and my gig schedule is pretty hectic, so someone who lived in the Central West was easier. But not to stress, we are still end lane and still performing, and we're heading back out on tour again in July this year.
Right. Well, yeah, speaking of that gig schedule, I did see that like December, January, you were packed with just public gigs, and then you also play functions. So,
Yes.
and I also want to point out that you are fitting this in around working in the family business and running your own music studio. So, as in teaching studio. So, so that is a lot, and it would be a lot, yes, to give up with an injury.
Yes, I think the hardest thing I found, I mean, having to take a break from music, I was only really off for, I think, maybe 3 weeks while I had surgeries and appointments and things, and then I was straight back into it singing. So I didn't really have any breaks there. But the hardest thing for me was I couldn't carry things on the farm. I couldn't use a pair of pliers. I couldn't drive the tractor because my left hand wouldn't work properly, and it was just really, really frustrating. I remember being super frustrated on this one day. We had a really sick calf, and I needed to pick it up, and I couldn't get my hands underneath it to pick it up. I wasn't strong enough one-handed, and I remember getting so cranky at myself because that's something that I would just do and not even think about. And I had to call my dad and say, Dad, I need you to send someone up here to help me. And he's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, my left hand doesn't work, Andrew. That's what's wrong with me. So,
Do you remember?
yeah, it was more of a frustration than anything else, trying to work out how to do things. Like we had a horse, my beautiful boy, injure himself. And thank God he's such a saint. I just knelt down and said, "Put your leg up here, mate." And he put his leg
Oh,
on my leg, and I there wrapping a bandage using my teeth. I had a massive cast on my arm, and I'm trying to I'm trying to do all these things, and unfortunately there's no one really there to do it for me. We have beautiful people at the farm, but at the end of the day it's what it is, and you have to work around it. So
that sounds like the motto of the conversation. It is what it is, and you have to work around it. So, in amongst all the things you do, you are releasing music. So I'm going to move on to
yes.
the new single. You've had a real progression in your sound from the country pop of Strange Love and Unchained, to the more country rock sound of Living in the Country, and now Love's a Little Bit. And that's, it's been kind of getting rockier and rockier. Was that a conscious change?
I actually think it was fairly, it just sort of happened, especially with this last track. Um, my producers had, a lot to do with my evolving sound. And this last track is so different to how we have ever produced any of my tracks, with the EP or with any of my singles. And I think the way that we produced this song really had an influence on how it, came out in the end. All we actually had when we went down and we recorded this song in January was Tarquin had the main riff line, and he had just this infinite loop of riff.
Mhm.
And then we had, he had two lines, and that was "There ain't nothing like love." And I said, well, that's a little bit broad. So he'd had, some of the, he kind of had like a bit of a melody down, but there was a few lyrics, but there wasn't anything super concrete. You don't get hung up on anything right in the beginning. And I said, okay, well, what are we going to write this song about? What's it going to be about? And he said, well, let's just write a song about love. And I said, that's so boring. And he said, no, like, let's go deeper into love. And I went, well, how deep do you want to go? We've got a song called Strange Love, a song about Unchained about breaking up about love. And he's like, well, so we wrote it down on a piece of paper, and we all sat there and we went around the room, and, we wrote down what we loved. And for me, it's my favorite farm boots. It's, you know, watching a man in a suit come down the aisle, waiting for his bride on a wedding day. For Tarquin, it's hanging around the campfire with me and Izzy. So we wrote all these things down and we just worked them into the song. And that's what it's about. It's just about what we love. And we hope that you can find what you love in that as well.
Yeah, and I think that's people can, because as I'm very fond of saying, the specific is universal. So by going for those things that you all individually love, people can reflect on whether or not that works for them as well. So
Yes.
so Tarquin, and we've talked about him before because he is more of a collaborator than a producer. So for anyone who doesn't know his work or know about the two of you working together, when did you start working together?
We actually started playing in a band together. I think it was 2019. I think we had a gig booked, and he came and filled in with 2 hours notice. And that's when we started working together. And I had no idea that he produced or that he was a songwriter, no clue. And then I was over at his place one day. We were doing a John Denver cover show. We'd had touring a John Denver cover show. And he said, I want to show you some stuff. And I said, oh, okay. And he sat me down on the computer. I think this is around 2021. He showed me this stuff. And I was like, wow, you are so talented. This is amazing. Let's write. So we wrote some songs and we wrote some bits and pieces, and I sent him all my stuff. And then in 2022 we started recording, and we recorded about 7 songs. And yeah, so we just spent weeks together, writing, recording, and collaborating. And someone said this to me after one of our John Denver shows that we did together. He said that we had beautiful musical chemistry, and I think that that's something that's really hard to find.
Mhm.
So, we've got the A team, so we're sticking with it.
Fair enough. I mean, and it's also one thing to find it; it's another thing to let it happen, because you could have listened to his stuff and thought, "Oh yeah, yeah, he's great," and not said a word, and then
Yes.
moved on. But obviously, there was something in what you were hearing that made you think, "No, this is a good synergy here."
Yeah, and I think it's Tarquin himself. He's such a great dude, and he will do anything for the people who he cares about. And when I broke my hand, I sent a message in the group chat and said, hey guys, kind of had a bit of a whoopsie. And he was straight on the phone to me, like, we're going to work this out. It's going to be fine. You're going to be fine. And whatever you need from me, you just let me know. And he absolutely works he works so hard to make all these songs come together, and he really pushes himself to the limit. And I think his musicality in this song definitely came through. He wrote the music to it, and the riff that he created was just unlike anything that we'd heard. It was brilliant.
It's a big stage sound in this song and the last song as well. So and it feels like it would do super well at festivals and parties and things like that. So have you had, well, probably you haven't yet because of the hand, but are you anticipating a band show situation soon? Sorry, and I've just realized you mentioned you're going on tour, but have you had a chance to play it live in any format?
Um, Not as a band. We did play it as like an acoustic song in Tamworth. But we felt like a bird with our wings cut off because we'd played the same way together for so long. And then all of a sudden I've just gone, sorry guys, can't play rhythm. Tarquin does not play rhythm. So yeah, he does not play rhythm guitar. And he actually said to me after Tamworth, he's like, man, you make that look so easy. And I was like, well, I can't do I can't do that stuff. So yeah, so we had to completely alter how our band worked, and it was really hard. It's probably the hardest thing we've had to do, and we did not like it. So hopefully once I'm back to being able to play fully, we will be back in the rehearsing room getting that song ready to go live, and we are hoping to take that one on the road in July as well.
Do you plan to have more songs out before July?
Ooh, yes.
So there's a
I
set
do.
list growing, yes.
It is, yes. It's very hard for me to try and decide whether I release songs I've already finished, or if every time I go, I'm going to release a new song, let's pick one from the bank, Tarquin goes, oh, hang on, I wrote this demo the other day. I'm like, Tarquin, you are killing me, man.
Because as you said, you recorded 7 the first time you met. Yeah. One
Yes,
time you
and
worked together.
I
Yeah.
haven't released any of them.
Right.
There are none of them that have been released. They're all just sitting there. So I don't really know. They might become part of an album one day. I'm not really sure what their purpose is going to be. They sound so different to what we have produced now, so we might have to kind of redo them, but that's okay. You look at things again and you go, oh, I might change it and do it like this. Um, but yes, definitely, there's a big release schedule for this year. Very heavy touring load this year as well, and yeah, I'm hoping to get onto some festival stages and move into that next space and more ticketed shows and just more fun.
Yeah, I think more fun is a great motto at this point in human history, actually. But I think you possibly make it fun for your music students because when I interviewed you last year, one of your students left a comment on YouTube saying, "That's my teacher, Miss Chloe. She is really nice and a wonderful lady." So clearly, you are having
Oh,
an impact.
that is so sweet. That is beautiful. I'm very lucky. I've got such a great bunch of kids that come in for the lessons every week. They're eager, they're bright eyed, and they're just eager to learn. And I love passing on my knowledge. And I've even started this year performance coaching and industry coaching for some of those young artists who are coming through and they, need someone to sort of, help them swim through those deep waters, because there's a lot of things that you don't realize that can drag you down, and you just need to stay afloat somehow, and sometimes someone just dragging you along can help. So
Yeah, performance coaching is an interesting one because I think stagecraft can be overlooked as a skill, like, and as a separate skill. It's not at all the case. It's just because you have a great voice and you can play instruments and you know how to perform in a band that you're actually going to know what to do when you're on stage. So for you as a performer, were these things that you've had to develop from a young age? Did you start performing at a young age?
uh for my parents, with my sister, sure, we started performing in the lounge room, if that counts. My sister absolutely loved like the Spice Girls and all that sort of stuff. And I used to be her stage director while she put on shows in the front lounge room. But
Right.
yeah, I started performing when I was about 14. I started doing markets, I was busking. Um, and I think those early years taught me a lot. It taught me not to be scared of the microphone and, to not be scared to say who you are, where you're from, and to own that while you're in front of that microphone, that stage is yours and you need to own it in your own way. So for me, that's a good bit of banter. I love adding people's names into songs, especially if they've got a good sense of humor. I love to, know about where people are from, where they've traveled from to come and see me, and to tell them a little bit about me. And I feel like if you can portray that in a couple of minutes, or 30 seconds between that next song, it lets them into you a little bit, and you can connect with your audience better.
Mhm. I think you've just demonstrated why you'd be a really good performance coach. So for anyone listening, you've just been given a mini lesson in stagecraft. I'm curious whether you feel that your teaching feeds into your practice as an artist. Like if there are things that actually in the teaching of them, you thought, oh, okay, I think I'm actually going to now apply that either in performance or in writing or recording.
Definitely, definitely. I have had moments where my students have taught me, and I go, wow, that's something that I never thought of, or I didn't think that you could look at it this way. So there's lots of things, even funny little jokes that my students have told me, and I go, wow, that's a great joke to tell while I'm tuning my guitar. Like, that's fantastic, that's really entertaining. And they keep you honest as well. We all make mistakes, and there's times where I'm sitting there going, no, that's the wrong note, and they go, it's the right note. And I'm like, no, it's not. They go, Miss Chloe, do you need to put your other glasses on? And I'm like, oh, dearie me. Oh, yes, you were right. Oh no. So yeah, there's they keep you honest, and it's really rewarding to see one of your students jump up on stage and perform a piece that they've worked really hard at. So I don't think I'll ever stop teaching. I will always find time to teach the younger generation, because if we don't, who is?
Mm-hmm. Very true. Now, teaching is also partly about inspiring, because you have to inspire students to learn and maybe inspire them to go further and become performers themselves. But in your musical life, who has inspired you?
A huge inspiration for me, especially in Australian country music, um, is got to be Hayley Jensen and Amber Lawrence, are two of the biggest powerhouse women here in Australia. How hard they work and how much they do for young and up and coming artists is amazing. They are so unbelievably talented that it blows my mind. And watching them on stage and watching them do what I want to do inspires me to keep going, and keep pushing every time I'm playing to the birds. And I gotta remember, I'm here to make money, and I'm here so that I can afford that next tour, and I can afford to release that next single, and I've got to keep my eyes on the prize.
Yeah, because it is quite an enterprise putting on a tour. It is really expensive, especially if it's not just you
Hmm.
traveling around. But live music, I feel, is coming back, and certainly looking at your gig schedule, that seems to be the case. In the Central West, you are getting around Mudgee, Orange, other places. So how when you have those regular shows, how far? Well, what's your limit, I guess, kilometer wise, of how far you'll travel?
Oh, I think to answer that question, one weekend I drove from Oberon, where I live. I'm currently in the process of moving to Mudgee too, which is exciting. But I drove from Oberon to Dubbo. I played a show in Dubbo. I finished in Dubbo pretty late, and then I got up the next morning and I drove to Kempsey. I
Nice.
then played a wedding in Kempsey. I think I was there for 6 or 7 hours playing this wedding. I then got back in my car and drove to my aunt's house in Port Macquarie. I slept in Port Macquarie, and then the next day I drove home. So I think it was about 2,000 Ks or something that I'd done. little stops here and there and bits and pieces. You know, the band and I, we drove to Brisbane and back in 5 days, with 4 shows in between. So, you know, we spent quite a significant amount of time in the car together. Um, so there really is no limit on how far we will travel. We will travel wherever our car can go. So
So when you might do a big weekend like that, where you're traveling around a lot, do you sing in the car while you're driving, or do you preserve your voice?
no, this might sound really odd, but there's a lot of times that I drive in complete silence.
Right.
My ears need a rest and my mind needs a rest, and you know, sometimes I just need the hum of those wheels. And in saying that, sometimes the hum of those wheels bring on the best inspiration, and when I'm driving, some killer songs come out, and you know, I get on the old Siri bandwagon, and all of a sudden I'm popped out 6 songs by the time I've got to my destination. So
Right.
there's something to be said about the hum of wheels and how it makes those neurons fire, gets the
Yeah.
inspiration happening.
So you said you're in the process of moving to Mudgee. Now, Mudgee does have, I think, some music venues. So will this change things a bit for you?
I think it will make life a little bit easier for me. My band is in Newcastle, so it's a lot less of a drive, no
Right.
tolls, which is nice to get to my band. I'm only 3 hours from the band. You know, Mudgee is where I am sort of doing a lot of my gigs. And yeah, I'm excited to see where this journey takes me. I've got my new studio open here. I'm still teaching out at Oberon as well. You know, till I'm not gonna let my kids down there. So I'm traveling 2 days a week because obviously my family still lives there, and you know, the farm and everything. So, you know, I think I'll slowly wean myself away from Oberon, but it'll take time because Oberon's home.
Yeah. Well, Chloe, it's been fabulous to talk to you. You have such a full, interesting life, and it sounds like it will continue to be full and interesting, and possibly even more full and more interesting. But in the meantime, I hope the fingers get less painful
Thank you.
soon, and look forward to seeing those new releases that are about to come out.
Thank you so much. Thank you for chatting to me. It's been great.